Hello, Malcolm here, and welcome to Tuesday Teaching Tips, episode 81. These recordings are designed to help us to be the most effective we can be at bringing God's Word to people, whether it's Sunday preaching, teaching in another context, wherever we find ourselves given the privilege of publicly teaching God's Word. That's what we're talking about. Now today, what I want to talk about is handouts, the use of handouts. I love a good handout. I find them very useful in my teaching and preaching. But in particular, I want to talk about the use of handouts on a Sunday. We're more familiar with using handouts for other classes, Sunday school and other teaching opportunities, but it's less often that we see them on a Sunday. And I wonder if we're missing a trick here. I think there's some good uses we can put a handout to for Sunday. So let me talk about 7 reasons why I think handouts are particularly useful for a Sunday sermon, and some ways in which to use them that might be helpful. I had one this last Sunday at our Watford church service. Gave this out to facilitate some small group discussion as part of the sermon. And I'm using a handout also this coming Sunday when I'm going up to Manchester to preach for the Manchester International Church of Christ. And I'm really looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing all my friends up there. By the way, if you're in the area and you want to come, we're meeting at the Manchester Church building at 10:30 in the morning, and I'll be preaching on Psalm 130, and you can get your very own handout if you come. Anyway, that's by the by for now. That's handouts. I love my handouts. Firstly, the reason for using a handout. Number 1, it clarifies your own thinking. I find this helps me a lot. I've got 2 or 3 pages of notes, but once I'm designing a handout to give out, I realize that I'm boiling it down, I'm simplifying it, and I end up noticing whether I myself have clarity on the core message that I'm trying to bring out or preach on or teach on, whether I've really got to the nub of the matter in that text. So as I bring down my notes to a handout, cutting things out, simplifying things, it helps me to realize, do I have clarity on my message? That's the first reason for doing a handout. It's really for me. Second reason for doing a handout is also for me in that it helps me make sure that I've prepared my sermon in good time. You've probably had this experience. It's Sunday morning and you want to print a handout, and you fire up your printer and you set it to print, and what happens? The paper runs out, the ink runs out, the drum doesn't rotate, there's a paper jam. Printers seem to be designed to mess around with us if we leave things to the last minute. So I never print on a Sunday morning. I'm printing on Saturday or Friday or earlier in the week. But if I'm going to print my handout, it must mean that I know what my sermon's about. So having a handout, knowing I'm going to have a handout, and I must print it before Sunday, helps me to get organized a little bit earlier. So the first 2 reasons for having handouts are really for me, because I do think it helps the other people I'm preaching to as well. But nevertheless, Number three, the reason I like a handout is I think it helps the people who are visiting our congregations to feel part of things. You know, when you have something in your hand, you're given something, you feel like you belong. For our members, they know when to stand up and sit down. They know the songs, or at least most of them. They know what's going on. For someone who's visiting, they don't know what on earth is going on, and they feel somewhat left out, somewhat separated from what's occurring. So give them a handout, and it helps them feel part of things, because not only they, but everybody in the room has a handout. So they're just the same as everybody else. I think it helps our visitors in that way. So third reason, helps the visitors feel part of things. Fourth reason, it helps kinetic learners. Kinetic learners are those who learn by doing things, and part of that might be to read a handout and to write on it. Having something in their hands helps them to focus and concentrate somewhat during a lesson. So kinetic learners find handouts particularly useful. And the 5th reason is similar, in that visual learners also find handouts useful. They're looking at something, they're not just listening to you, they're looking not only perhaps at a screen, but something in their hands, they're looking at it, they're reading it, they're noticing it, they're making notes on it. That also can be very helpful for those who are primarily visual learners. So where have we got to? 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 5. Yes. The 6th reason for giving a handout is that it helps people to clarify their own thinking. As they look at this and they see the topic titles or whatever you put on there, It helps them clarify their own thinking. I think it helps most people just as they read something. Oh, do I believe in that? Do I think about that enough? Is that a question for me to answer? Is that something for me to reflect on? Clarifying their own thinking. Sometimes as you listen to someone talk for 25 minutes or so, you don't always follow the thread of their argument. Your own attention might wander from time to time. Even the best speaker can't hold your attention all the time. So you may lose the thread, but when you see everything summarized on one piece of paper, it helps you to understand what's really going on and hopefully will clarify your own thinking. So that's our 6th reason. And our 7th reason is that I hope that people will take their handout away and they'll reflect on it. And so I think there's an opportunity there to help people to make a decision, something that will last beyond the Sunday sermon, even beyond the day. That night they might reflect on it, that perhaps they'll pray over it, talk about it with their spouse, with their family, with their flatmates, and then on Monday they could use it as their Monday quiet time, or perhaps even for the whole week. And so we help people to not only agree with what they're hearing, hopefully, not only think about it at the time, but then incorporate what they're learning into their lives. And that's the point of any preaching, isn't it? Hopefully great preaching helps people to incorporate things into their own lives. And I do believe that a handout can help with that. So those are 7 reasons for using handouts and ways to use them. As a bonus final thought is I'd offer this. In what way do we give the handouts? I think that matters. Now, you can just give them out at the beginning of your sermon. That's okay. The problem with that is that you tend to lose the attention and the connection with everybody as you do that. Because what happens when you get a handout, when I get a handout, rather than, oh, that's a nice handout, now let me pay attention to what the person's saying, I get a handout and my head goes down and I'm reading it and I'm thinking about it. And the person over there somewhere is talking, but I'm not connected. So try not to give them out at the beginning of a lesson if you possibly can. The second better option is to put them on the chairs. Put one in every chair and then it's there for people to pick up. That's okay. But I think the best option of all, third option and the best one, is to give these to people as they walk in the room, as they walk in the building. Perhaps you could ask someone to help you with that, and they can stand by the door and give them to people as they come in. I do believe that would be the best option. So there we have some ideas and some thoughts on handouts and their use. So how do you use handouts? Do you use them in the way I've suggested? Do you have other suggestions? If you've got better ideas or just different ideas for the best way to use handouts, I'd really like to know your ideas, and I'm sure so would everybody who listens or watches these recordings. So leave a comment, and let's all learn from one another. We learn best when we learn in community. And if I could ask one favor, pass this on to one other person, somebody else you think might benefit from this recording or any of the other 80 Tuesday teaching tips so far recorded. Thanks so much, and I hope you have a wonderful week, a terrific Tuesday, and God bless.